by now that feeling of trying to get information off the internet, which is a lot like trying to take a drink from a fire hose?
You get to drink from the fire hose! Yeah! Open wide!
And if you've ever taken literally any kind of writing class, you've probably had the talk.
So, do you know where babies come from?
Whoa, not that talk. We're talking about what makes research credible. I'm seriously, optimistically, and maybe even a little bit delusionally hoping that you understand what separates good research from questionable sources. For example, peer-reviewed scholarly sources are a lot more reliable than TMZ.
Justin, I know you're Canadian. Would you sing at Trump's inauguration?
At least in theory they are. So I'm not going to rehash all that. Instead, this time let's talk about how research works for a speech versus how research works for a paper. When you're talking to a group of people, your job as the speaker is to moderate perceived credibility. Your task is to establish the credibility or the believability of the research you present in your speech. I often hear speech students ask,
well, what if I know everything there is to know about my topic because I'm such an expert?
Well, public speaking is sort of like one of those trust falls.
1, 2, 3. No!
Your audience doesn't necessarily know anything about your experience, and telling them about your experience doesn't necessarily show them. So we lean on outside research to help support our information. Part of this challenge is in being able to read your audience. I mean, if I'm speaking to a room full of preschoolers, I probably don't need a lot of citations to gain their confidence.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
More discerning audiences, aka more educated audiences like yourselves, will need more information to be able to show that they can trust everything that you're saying is true. Some sources won't require a lot of setup during your speech. For example, if you're citing something like the New York Times or the Washington Post or Time Magazine, people will just get it because those sources already have credibility. On the other hand, if you're citing a local beekeeping blogger, then the audience might need a little bit more information in order to know why that source is credible. Look, it isn't an exact science.
It's not rocket science.
This process requires critical thinking to know just how much information to share with an audience in order to gain that trust. Okay, but maybe there's research we should avoid no matter what, right? When most of us hear a speaker say,
according to an article in Wikipedia,
then it doesn't matter what comes out of their mouths next. Their credibility is shot. That mean Wikipedia is the devil? Not at all. Think of Wikipedia as crowdsourced information. I always recommend using Wikipedia as a starting point because in most articles, Wikipedia authors have provided sources. If you scroll to the bottom of those articles and then you go look up those sources and you read them for yourself, then you can cite those sources in your speech rather than Wikipedia. Just make sure you really do go read those for yourself. Speaking of citing, in a speech, you want to cite your sources conversationally. I mean, nobody wants to listen to a walking bibliography, right? Walking bibliography. That would make a great band name for a group of librarians. In general, when you cite a source, try to front load your claim. No, that's a front-end loader. Front-loading is when you state your source before sharing the information that you got from that source. For example, according to the American Medical Association, eating an apple a day can boost the immune system. By doing this, our audience knows up front that what information we're about to share is credible, researched information. Ultimately, when you're giving a speech, remember that your audience does not have the benefit of being able to scroll to the bottom and read your bibliography. So it is your job as the speaker to provide just enough information so that they can go out and look up that information for themselves, should they so choose. When speaking in front of an audience, your credibility is decided in seconds. So how you support your ideas may matter a lot more than you ever realized.